All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Hazy Hustle. My name is Tyler. I am your host here, licensed realtor in the Okanagan. It's been a little bit since I made a video. We got some pretty cool new merch, as you can see. I'm pretty happy about it. They look pretty freaking awesome, if you ask me. So yeah, black on black stuff. I'm so bad with this. I'm always moving the wrong direction when I'm reversed to the camera. But yeah. Anyways, welcome back to another episode. I know I said I was gonna make a bunch of videos throughout the process of the election, but kind of based off what I was seeing with the media and all that type of stuff, I ended up following a lot of independent media in the first place, so that kind of doesn't really hold up too much when it comes to making my own content. So yeah, CBC did a horrible job. I just wanted to go off by saying that right off the start and just say I am absolutely disgusted with CBC's coverage on this election and their inability to be bipartisan or nonpartisan. It's really annoying that government funded media is the one that holds the majority of ears when it comes to non-internet people, to say the least. People that have no other abilities to find access to information. So yeah, anyways, besides the topic, we got a liberal minority. So we'll be watching to see what they implement. Obviously, they're talking about no GST for first-time home buyers on new builds. I'm really disappointed. I wish they would have gone for just an exemption on GST for purpose-built rent or purpose-built anything that fits a parameter of their eco whatever BS, the carbon stuff that they want to deal with, or if they were to be prefab or some type of a incentive for everybody to buy new and to get a discount on it. So you didn't do that, unfortunate. Parliament doesn't get back into power till May 27th, so we'll see what happens when that is the case, but it's going to be at least a month before we see anything implemented or before it even gets tabled. So if you're able to wait, sure, but just remember, are you going to get a discount on that GST if you buy now, or are you going to wait and end up paying more on your purchase price that the GST rebate or the lack of paying the GST doesn't really matter? So look at your situation, look at what's going on, and kind of look at your hand, and I hope people are speaking with the right people, mortgage brokers, realtors, that type of thing. Explore your options and don't be afraid to ask questions right now, because we're here to help, right? That's what we're here for. So, Carney and Trump met yesterday. The much anticipated podcast, the most anticipated podcast, you could say, because I've kind of turned whatever this whole outside of the Oval Office sit down with world leaders in front of 100 press and answer questions, or just listen to Trump while he answers questions from reporters, which is wild. I just call it the Trump podcast at this point, but it's been freaking interesting to watch. But Carney sat down with him, and you'll hear CBC saying that he did such a good job in dodging landmines and all this stuff, but I don't know. He campaigned for the last 2 months talking about how he's the enemy. Trump's trying to divide us. He's trying to take what's ours and all this stuff. And as somebody who was supposed to really stick it to Trump, the master negotiator, the guy who's going to really make Canada feel strong, I just was very, very underwhelmed with how he decided to handle that whole situation. He spoke for maybe 2 minutes. He addressed that Canada will never be purchased, sure. But yeah, he just kind of let Trump do his thing. So yeah, not elbows up like he was talking about, but I mean, I get it. I get what he's doing. If you're talking about a good strategy, then yes, what he's doing is right. But it's just not what they were talking about at first, right? If he campaigned on the fact that we have to go there and be nice to Trump and, not poke him too hard, but be good, make sure that he knows that, we're still our own thing, he wasn't that assertive. He just said Canada won't be bought. So, he's right. But yeah, it's just if he would have campaigned on actually doing what he just did, people wouldn't have voted for him. They would have been like, so you're going to just roll over and take it? Right? Like they thought Pierre was going to be the one that just like was going to roll over and let Trump take over Canada or whatever the heck people seem to think that was the case. But that was essentially what Carney just kind of did, right? He just let Trump do his thing. So yeah, we'll let Andrew Chang do his thing. I don't like the CBC whatsoever, as I just mentioned before, but I do like Andrew's segment here on the About That. So we'll take a look at that and see kind of what his whole opinion on this whole Trump fiasco was. I'll just move myself up there.
So everything was fine. It was fine. It went well. The meeting seemed to go well.
Probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, maybe even greater than mine. You know?
President Donald Trump congratulating the Canadian Prime Minister on his recent election win. The whole conversation just filled to the brim with warmth and cordiality.
I think I was probably the greatest thing that happened to him, but I can't take full credit.
But then, things got serious. Less than 10 minutes into the meeting, the first real test.
You had said that Canada should become the 51st state.
Yeah. No. Well, I still believe that, but you know, takes two to tango, right?
Yes, this was the question posing the greatest risk: the annexation
Takes
of
two to
Canada,
tango.
making it the 51st state. From the point of view of a U.S. president who,
Guys, he just wants Alberta. Watch.
unceasingly threatens to take what he believes America needs,
You know, I'm a real estate developer at heart.
facing a prime minister who has steadfastly at every turn said no. And that was only
I'm calling it right now that if the Liberals fail to implement the stuff that they're talking about, and we're not talking about, you know, the energy corridor filled with windmills and solar panels, we're talking about like real energy, like LNG, pipelines, nuclear. If he doesn't do that type of stuff, watch and see what type of talks Alberta and the U.S. start having.
the first test. Let me take you through it.
They know each other. These guys know each
So
other.
I'll get back to this 51st state stuff in just a moment. The first thing that's helpful to understand about this whole meeting is that the build-up to it was really an exercise in aiming low.
Prime Minister Carney really downplaying expectations.
The lowest possible bar. Make nice, don't mess it up, and that would be a success.
Yes, the
Imagine if he campaigned on that. We're going to make nice, and we're not going to mess it up, and we're not going to piss them off.
overarching message from Carney himself was, everybody just chill.
Do not expect white smoke out of that meeting.
And I heard one expert put it perfectly. The goal for today is to get through today. So with that in mind, at 11:55 a.m., the beginning of the beginning, Donald Trump, no hint of a smile on his face, but Carney beaming. A quick turn to an army of reporters looking for a sign of something, anything, a familiar Trumpian fist pump to the crowd, and then Carney somewhat sheepishly mirrors the gesture. Like, when in Rome, right? I guess this is what we're doing now. But then, on to business.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor to have Prime Minister Mark Carney.
So the actual first real test for Mark Carney wasn't even necessarily one presented by Trump. Carney's challenge was always going to be how he juggled two very different audiences, one American and one Canadian.
Thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl and other opioids, and securing the world.
You notice how Carney is doing two things here. He's apparently complimenting the president, but for Canadians deeply wary of anyone who would bend
Mr.
the knee
JT's
to Trump.
babysitter.
He's not fawning, and he's not really complimenting him at all. Listen again. There's no real value judgment here, good or bad, just a series of facts.
You're a transformational president, focus on the economy, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl, and securing the world.
A transformational leader. Not a good one necessarily, just one who's done a lot of stuff, focused on many things. I point this out to show you how careful a line Carney is about to spend the next 30 minutes walking.
I think from Carney's perspective, it's a smart move to try to keep things friendly, try to keep things cordial, but also to...
Once again, the point is, yes, it is a smart move. Absolutely. But that's not what he said he was going to do.
To remind Trump that Canada has agency of its own. Canada is not interested in a lot of things that Trump wants for it. And so, I think it was, smile, but also maintain the strength of your positions on those issues facing the two countries.
And this balance would be tested again when Trump reminded Carney why Canada as a country just simply shouldn't exist.
Somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be.
The friendly tone of the president, even if what he said, the way he said it was friendly, what he said, though, was, as I said, kind of menacing and alarming.
It is a daunting moment, and it is tricky, it is difficult, it's challenging from a political communications perspective, and it's also challenging from a very personal perspective.
Mark Carney's answer here would need to do two things. It would need to state clearly, Canada is never becoming the 51st state. But he would need to do it in a way that doesn't insult Trump for wanting it to be so, and in a way he could relate to. Here was his answer.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership.
Politicians often talk about that perfect 10-word answer. What do you say that can blunt the attack, refocus back to your thing, and move things forward? And in the end, they landed on this notion of a real estate analogy that you could sort of see Trump nodding along to and saying, oh yeah, no, I get exactly what you mean.
And so this was how the question of Canada becoming the 51st state lived and died in this meeting.
But never say never. Never say never.
It was really that simple. Trump maintained his position that this would be good for Canada. Carney politely declined the offer while reminding Trump there is still opportunity for partnership and still allowing Trump to indulge in a vision of, well, let's see how it all plays out.
When you consider what Mr. Carney just said, that Canada is not for sale, does this make the discussion a little more difficult to start on?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, time will tell. It's only time. But I say never.
From there, Carney likely knew he had overcome the single biggest threat to a graceful start to the relationship. We would also very soon see another tactic of Carney's played out across two key moments. Here's the first.
I won't say this about Mark, but I didn't like his predecessor. I didn't like a person that worked for. She was terrible, actually. She was a terrible person. She really hurt that deal very badly because she tried to take advantage
Carney
of
played
the
this
deal
very
and
smart.
She didn't get away with it. You know what I'm talking about.
So the critical context here isn't that Trump is bashing Carney's predecessor in Justin Trudeau. It's that he's bashing one of Carney's cabinet ministers and friend in Chrystia Freeland. That whole, you know who I'm talking about, right, is her. And in case you didn't know, Freeland is dear enough to Carney that he is the godfather of her son. So this is one moment where Carney decides simply to stomach an insult against his friend.
You know who I'm talking about. But we had a bad relationship having to do with the fact that we disagreed with the way they viewed the deal.
I was watching your face through the meeting in the Oval Office, and I wondered what was going through your mind when the president talked about erasing the artificial border and how he criticized your predecessor and Madam Freeland.
Well, thank you for your question. I'm glad that you couldn't tell what was going through my mind.
And then something similar happened when Trump started denigrating the Democratic governor of California, Gavin Newsom, by calling him a name and then trying to get Carney in on the joke.
Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Did you ever hear of Gavin Newsom?
But again, Carney's play here is to engage as little as possible, as unnoticeably as possible.
Carney stayed mostly silent throughout this bilateral meeting, letting the president take center stage, so to speak.
Trump likes to talk. Trump likes to give these sort of rambling monologues. We've seen this at his rallies. We saw it at his State of the Union address earlier this year.
That's right.
I think a good strategy in a one-on-one meeting is probably to just let him get it out of his system, let him talk, and then make your case when you have the opportunity. And I think that's what we saw in that meeting.
Which brings us to Carney's parting words to journalists and to Trump himself.
Respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state. Secondly, we are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. This is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here.
This is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation.
And with that, you've really heard almost all of what Mark Carney had to say in that half-hour meeting, which was ultimately a demonstration of restraint and picking one's spots.
The discipline of the Canadian delegation and the measured, interjections by the Prime Minister, I think the public portion of that went pretty well for Canada.
But what does all this mean? Well, a couple of things. One, any world leader looking to this meeting for guidance on how to get into Trump's good graces may very well see that keeping your mouth shut can go a long way. But two, there is a question to be asked about what Canada really gains out of this. For Donald Trump, politics is personal. And by that measure, this meeting does seem to have gone well.
We had a great meeting today. Really good. I think the relationship's going to be very strong.
But the real substance happens behind closed doors.
Look, we have, JP, we have a lot more work to do. I'm not trying to suggest at any respect that we can have one meeting and everything's changed, but now we are engaged and very fully engaged.
Above all else, Canada is looking for clarity, something that would explain the roller coaster of the last 100 days and the solution, really, to a puzzle no one has cracked. What do you even want from us?
So yeah, Andrew Chang about that. CBC sucks. This is not too bad. Yeah, one thing that people seem to forget is that Trump never gets it out of his system. Are you joking me? Like, just let him do his thing and it'll get out of his system? How long have you guys been watching this guy? Because as far as I'm aware of, I've been watching him since Home Alone 2. Like, I've known of Donald Trump my whole life. And he just doesn't stop. He just keeps going. What are you talking about? Let him get it out of his system. You're just going to let him talk over you, and that's going to appease him and let you say your piece when you need to. The way that they talk about how these guys deal with each other is so ridiculous. Like, you're talking about the leader of Canada and the leader of the United States, who is Donald Trump. You're just going to let him do his thing, and that will satisfy him and then allow you to do your thing. That is such a crazy take on that I don't even know what to do with it. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's not the right way to go about it. You need to show force, not in the way that Zelensky did, not disrespectfully. I don't think he did a bad job, but that's not what he campaigned on. He played it smart. He didn't piss him off. He let him get away with a few jabs and all that type of stuff, and he did the photo op thing and made Trump feel good about himself. But that's not what he campaigned on. He campaigned on being tough, elbows up, and fighting for Canada's sovereignty. And what it looked like to me was just somebody who's trying to appease and stay out of the crosshairs. And that's fine, but that's just not the way I saw that playing out, and not the way that I saw him delivering his promise to Canada and to all the people that voted for him. So I'm really curious to see what people have to say about that interaction, because like I said, it was the most awaited podcast episode for Canadians since December. Right? Like ever since this whole thing started, we've been waiting to see what it's going to happen with this trade war. So now we saw, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm not disappointed. Like I said, I'm open to seeing how Carney does, and he did play it smart, but that's not how he said he was going to play it. So, anyways, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, hit that notification button, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.